The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
October 20th, 2016 edition of the Benjamin Dixon Show. Thank you so much for joining us here at Progressive Army, the Benjamin Dixon Show, The Way with Anoa. Shout out to my brothers over at Project Sanity. They just finished wrapping up. I hope you got to check them out. If you haven't checked them out before, definitely go check out their YouTube channel. Check out the playlist on the channel here. As always, you know, my name is Anoa Changa, and I'm the host of The Way with Anoa, and I am standing in for Ben this evening. You know, self-care, family time is so important, you know, for all of us, particularly with the work that we do. And Ben goes hard 4 nights a week with his different special sessions that he does every once in a while. So, you know, shout out to Ben and the Dixon clan on this night off. So what's popping, y'all? Call in, you know, I want to talk to you. I want to hear what's going on. If you haven't already, if you're new to the channel or you've been with us for a little while and you haven't done so, please subscribe. Definitely always like and share our videos. You know, Progressive Army, we are growing and we are committed to bringing you solid content, you know, continuous, thought-provoking. I know some of you, we had a dust up on Twitter. It's all love because we don't have to agree. We do need to, you know, I respect you. We don't have to always agree. I know Ben and I don't always agree. My brothers over at Project Sanity, you know, Nick and I, we don't always agree. But, you know, at the same time, we don't have to all agree and be in exactly the same mind frame and mindset to do the work that needs to be done and to move the needle forward. I mean, conversations are important, and that's how we grow and change and actually achieve recognizable results. So, with that in mind, you know, we are in the thick of it. Is the countdown. It's the final countdown. I know my singing is like awful. It is not something I'm going to do regularly, but this time of the, you know, this election cycle, this time of the year, it kind of, you know, brings out the goof in me. You got to laugh through this. You know, if you don't laugh through it, it might get the best of you. I think there was a piece maybe from NPR or I think it might have been NPR, talked about how the election is actually depressing a lot of people. And I just want to say, if any of you are down, and I mean, I can understand, particularly for those of us who are active and involved throughout the primary stuff and seeing how things have turned out, and just the way this awful general election cycle has dragged on. I get it. I do. But you know what? Which is part of what my job is, right? You know, Ben and I play good cop, bad cop. Just depends upon who's good cop, bad cop, you know, during the week. But part of my job, you know, for this week is being a cheerleader, is trying to help, being a coach, being a motivator. I mean, you know, this is halftime. I'm here to give you that pep talk in the locker room so we can get back out there and knock them back, you know what I'm saying, and win this, you know, underdog. Think of whatever underdog sports movie you've ever seen. Yeah, this us right now. And as progressives, as the left, we need to really, you know, someone said to me yesterday on Twitter that the left, we tend to take things we're too sensitive. We tend to, you know, there's a lot of infighting. But here's the thing, like when you talk about the left, when you talk about progressives, when you talk about, you know, liberals in general, there are a lot of different ideologies, mindsets, issues, or whatever that are trying to come together. And really, you know, we need to set some ground rules about mutual respect and engagement. But at the same time, not everybody's going to be able to rock with you on every issue. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It is what it is. But at the same time, we need to understand that people are going to engage in the way they're going to engage. People are going to address issues the way they are. And you can call somebody out, but don't get your back up if you get pushback. And that goes for us too, right? So I really do feel like as we move forward, as we build out this movement, because we're at a crossroads, you know, movements happen in cycles. This is the 50th anniversary. This year is the 50th anniversary of the coinage of the term Black Power, of the Black Power, the beginning, the real surgency, you know, beginning, genesis of the Black Power movement, the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party for self-defense out of, you know, that started by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale out of Oakland, that spread all across the country. And I mean, we're still talking about it 50 years later, right? So there's a lot of power in what's happening right now. It's almost like the ancestors are really like, I'm getting a little metaphysical, spiritual on you right now, because I mean, really, I think we need to pull from whatever is motivating us, whatever we got to pull from to keep us engaged, right? Because you can't maintain a high level of stress and frustration for long, because we're going to burn out. But I do think that we need to dig deep and find what motivates us, what engages us, what keeps us committed, and build on it, right? And build together. And like I said, we work together where we can work together, and we give space and respect, where needed. So there's a lot going on, and we need to just continue to be active and engaged. And with that being said, we are almost out of the crap show, at least this phase of it. And final presidential debate was last night. I know Ben and the crew did some post-debate coverage last night. I'm gonna give a few thoughts from what I witnessed. I had a wonderful conversation actually with a journalist out of Shanghai. Pretty cool. To talk to someone over in China about our elections, and just to have a conversation about the differences in the way things are done, but also some similarities. Because one of the things she was sharing with me was the fact that they're trying to develop their newspaper, their media outlet, and it is difficult because of issues with censorship and government interference and their ability to get out a message and share certain news, and especially since they deal a lot with like politics and current events and stuff. So it was a really robust, really great conversation, and maybe someday I could actually work it out so I can record an interview with her, because with the time difference, we wouldn't be able to necessarily do it live. But yeah, so she was awesome, and it was great to talk about this, because we actually talked in the middle of the debate, and then I went back and rewatched to see what I missed. But some of the things that stuck out with me, now I know, and how about we calm down before we start trying to pull my progressive card? Because let me tell you something about me, right? Because let me tell you, because my brother and I were talking about this on the way home from the event we were at earlier today. None of you, and I'm not throwing salt on nobody. I love y'all, I respect y'all, and I absolutely appreciate y'all, because without you, we would not be. I would still be speaking my truth, and I'd be annoying my family, probably. But at the same time, please don't ever come out your mouth and tell me I'm not a progressive, or I'm not X, Y, and Z, or I'm not a strong Black woman. Whatever it is, we don't have to agree, and that's fine. And I respect the fact that you don't agree with me, but you're not gonna come out your mouth at me. And the person who this is directed to, yeah, I'm being a little petty right now, but that's okay. Because here's what we do. We don't get the work done by tearing down the people who are standing there with us shoulder to shoulder, simply because they do not agree with us on a point. And I find this happening a lot, and it's extremely self-defeatist. And we're shooting ourselves in our own foot by tearing down the people who stand with us and are willing to get this work done, versus really trying to figure out what common ground can we build upon. Because for like Ben and I, for example, we all don't have to talk about the same exact things, the same exact stories, the same exact mindset. That's boring. If you watch another outlet, or you watch somebody else because they're talking about a particular topic a certain way, why would you then come to the Benjamin Dixon Show or The Way with Anoa to hear us say the same exact thing in the same exact way that you just heard from the other video? Isn't your time more valuable than that? We should not all be regurgitating the same thing. Otherwise, we're no better than the mainstream media that we're saying that we're all revolting against. Like when we talk about progressive army, when we talk about media revolt, we're talking about building out the platforms to motivate, to nurture, to incubate the ideas, the conversation. It is the conversation that is lacking, that is missing in today's mass communications, in mainstream media. The conversation is not being had. It is so sanitized, it is so sterilized, and it's so focused on certain particular points that are being shoved down our throat that in many cases simply aren't even true. And so you have Ben, you have myself, you have Tim Black. There's so many other, you have the brothers over at Let the Madness Begin. I mean, there's so many people out there, real progressives, real news. There's so many folks out here doing this work. We all don't have to sound exactly the same. That's asinine. All we doing then is repeating the fallacy, the problems of the mainstream media. We're doing something different. and we're stimulating conversation. I learn as much from you all who follow us, who engage with us and build with us, as you all might learn from me. Maybe I learn more from you than you learn from me. I don't know. But so this is all this conversation because this is good though, right? It don't have to be a breakdown. It don't have to be, man, bump them, I ain't messing with them more. This is how we build. Conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. The galaxy, the earth was created out of chaos. You know what I'm saying? You can't have greatness without some friction to begin with. So that's my little spiel about that as we get into this presidential debate. So the presidential debate was a hot damn mess. They've been all been a mess, right? Bernie's not in it anymore, so we have nothing real concrete and substantive that's really going on. Last night was interesting for several different reasons. But some of the things that I think, and I'm saying all this because, you know, I get most of us are not happy. We're not satisfied with the presence of Secretary Clinton on the stage at this game, right? But at the same time, there were points that were made that need to be reiterated that she made, which were valid, or there were points that Donald Trump made that need to absolutely be rebuked because they're absolutely dangerous to our ability to exist. First off, I'm gonna start, and I know I got a caller coming, so caller, I'm gonna take you in just 1 second. Caller drop. But the first thing with Donald Trump last night, I'm gonna talk about his abortion comments, right? I understand, you know, we are upset, or Hillary is a warmonger, all this stuff. But here's the fact of the matter thing. And no, I'm not making a case for her. I'm going point by point, because here's the thing: no matter who is in office, if we don't get the right people in them seats in Congress, if we don't get the right people in our state and local houses, we're not going to change a lot of shit. Excuse my language. But not just state and local, like House elections, congressional elections. We need to be looking at who's going to be judges, prosecutors, mayoral elections, city council, school board. These are things we need to be focused on. And so his commentary about abortion was extremely dangerous, and dangerous for women, particularly when we're talking about low income and women of color in particular, are disproportionately negatively impacted by adverse decisions on the topic of abortion in particular. That don't got to be your issue. That don't got to be your topic. But at the same time, just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean you should not be concerned about access being denied to other people. So when this jerkwad gets on TV talking about you can abort a baby at 9 months like the day before it's due, where in the hell do you think we live? Dude, what nonsense videos, you know, since y'all like to watch these gotcha videos people got, that's some nonsense out of one of their videos, them stupid Planned Parenthood videos people came out with. Seriously, that when I talk about why we do actually have to rebuke the nonsense that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, that is exactly why, because there's a whole portion of this country that believes, that firmly believes the BS, the lies, and the fabrications that come out of his mouth and others. Now, so just hang in there if you guys trying to call in. We're trying to work it out or whatever on the back end over here with the Skype. But it's a problem, and that was something that struck me. I'm like, I understand about being pro-life. Part of me being pro-choice is I respect people's choice to exist how they exist, right? But at the same time, you just to blatantly just out lie on that level. And yes, Hillary Clinton lies too. I'm about to get there. Just calm down. I'm getting there. I'm an equal opportunist caller outer. Okay. So that was something that struck me, you know, I mean, real rough. The other thing with Donald Trump, which, you know what? Nah. Because I'm stealing this from Power 105. Somebody getting the donkey of the day up in here tonight. And I'm going to say my other issue with Donald Trump for that part. But when we talk about Hillary Clinton, you know, the biggest thing that really stood out to me was the fact that she doubled down on information that just was not even valid, right? That we have no actual confirmations. You know, everyone keeps doubling down on, we gotta vote against Trump. We gotta save the minorities and the women and the LGBTQ community and the disabled. We gotta save them from Trump. It's from Trump. I need somebody. I understand what Trump is saying, but like, are you looking at what people are actually doing here in this country now? I know people talk about the Trump effect and how things have happened. We have more. I don't think it's an issue that we necessarily have more of the bullying and stuff. I mean, definitely people are emboldened, but like, if you're a parent of color and you really ever start to sit down and talk to your kids about the things that are said to them at school, you probably would be surprised to find out that this stuff has been happening before this election cycle. When my daughter and I have talked about, like I said, we lived in West Virginia, and I just did not realize, because she didn't talk. She didn't really come home. She's like, I can't complain every single day that somebody says or does something, but the things that she experienced between 4th and 6th grade, that's not because of Donald Trump. Like, that's not because of Donald Trump. That's because that there is a remnant, there's something embedded deep within American society that has not been addressed, that we do not actively deal with and counteract. And we don't, my daughter said to me, because we were talking about something that happened in school now, and she said to me, well, you've never taught me how to deal with microaggressions. You can say, call it out, but how do I actually go about doing that? And do I always have to be the one? Like, that is something we have to talk about too, because we could talk about all these huge macro level issues. Like, okay, we got to defeat Trump. Moral imperative to be Trump. Trump is so evil. Trump is this. Like, that's not going to get rid of racism. Racism is as American as apple pie. American as Betsy Ross stitching the damn American flag. I mean, do we really know? Did Betsy Ross really stitch the American flag, or did one of the slaves on the plantation where Betsy Ross was at stitch the American flag? I don't know. I just know what the history tells me. And I don't know that Betsy Ross was actually sitting on a plantation. I'm just being, provocative at the moment. But, the big thing about this is, we keep talking about we have to defeat Trump no matter what. There's a really great piece in The Socialist Worker that talked about how, let's for a second put aside the crap show that is Donald Trump, and let's talk about what's really wrong with Hillary Clinton. Because it's not because she's a woman that we're picking on her. We have evolved with mass communication, with social media, with information technology the way we have. Whoever would be running right now would be heavily scrutinized. That's why Bernie Sanders was probably for the first time in his career getting attacked with, an essay he wrote in the 70s that he said was satire. Like, things happen. But here we are right now with the presidential election, and we have our Democratic nominee doubling down on red baiting, on McCarthy era type rhetoric based on conjecture and belief of certain agencies. So last night during the debate, Secretary Clinton escalated the conversation about Russia. And as editorial board, we Progressive Army, if you guys aren't familiar with what our structure is, we have all our different shows, the Louisa Project, Benjamin Dixon Show, The Way with Anoa, and Project Sanity. But we also have our media, our journal, the Progressive Army, and progressivearmy.com. And we just restructured in our editorial board. And I'm about to pull up so I can make sure I get everybody's titles and stuff correct. But we were going back and forth about this whole, piece, this conversation about the WikiLeaks, because WikiLeaks has been overshadowed, and all anyone can say is, but Russia's interfering. And that's our piece today that we just put out this afternoon. Keep calm and blame Russia. And in it, we discuss this whole piece, like, okay, Russia may or may not have done X, Y, and Z, but that does not negate the fact that the content of the information is a valuable public information, and it's real. Like this is how people who want to govern and who are governing are engaging in deceitful practices behind the scenes. And everybody can say this is politics as usual. That's the way it is, blah, blah, blah. But that's not okay. That's unacceptable, in fact. We can't just say we want change. We can't say that we're actually, as progressives, right? For progressives to say, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, that's the way things are, blah, 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 blah. We can't say that we want open government, that we want to have representative, democracy of the people, for the people, by the people, but then say, oh, yeah, it doesn't really matter. That was their personal emails. I mean, that's how everybody does it anyway. Everybody's been doing it this way, and things are not any better for me and you, right? So if they're doing crooked stuff and cutting deals for each other and themselves. How do we sit by and just allow that to continue to happen without demanding change for us? And so I like I said before, I agree with Professor Lessig in his blog pieces. He talks about how he felt that the stuff that in the emails that pertains to, that is of public import, that is fair game for being released. The fact that there may have been something impermissible in how the information was obtained does not negate the veracity and relevance of the actual information itself. Those are two separate conversations. And so one of the things that we get into in our editorial, definitely please check it out, read, share, and get it around, is the fact that the Democratic Party, instead of taking responsibility and accountability for what has come out, for the heavy-handed nature, for the blatant collusion that has happened, right, even before the primary even began, from Bernie Sanders being set up in conversations with women senators, and then they leaked that to the press, like all types of machinations and stuff that have happened to manipulate and position Secretary Clinton to be, the winner, including, the shaping of the debate schedule, the freezing him out of the media, like all types of stuff happened. And then now we see, things happening even leading to the general election cycle that absolutely do matter, because these are people who are going to be presumably part of the chief, part of her staff. These are people who are apparently, when we look at the Podesta emails that have come out, I think we're on batch 12 or 13. It's going to come out now. We look at the Podesta emails. I think it's batch 12. We look at the Podesta emails. Apparently John Podesta handpicked pretty much all of President Obama's cabinet. So we know these people behind the scenes have a certain degree of power and engagement in our system. So yes, we are absolutely entitled to knowing what they're doing, how they're doing it, and who they're doing it with. Now, the fact that Russia may or may not have been behind it is a separate issue that needs to be addressed. However, one of the things we note is this conversation around Russia without actual proof, and some have said that actually the leaks were caused by actually U.S. nationals, not Russians, right? I mean, they've said IP addresses may have bounced off or wherever, but whatever. I mean, they also told us there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We saw how that turned out. So forgive us if we're not in this rush to believe the Russians are behind this. And they're like, oh my God, we've never had a country interfere in an election the way they have. When did Bibi came to, not only did Bibi come to the United States and speak to Congress, Bibi came and circumvented our president on the eve of his own election. And wasn't this ahead of our midterms or around that same time? I mean, like Israel, absolutely. Israeli donors, right? Haim Saban, for example, that he is her number one donor. I mean, basically, he dictated that she write the anti-BDS open letter that she wrote last summer. So to say that we don't have foreign powers, and quite honestly, I mean, if corporations are people, then they count, as an evil or a power or whatever, right? So these big corporate donors. So to say that this has never happened, that it's unprecedented, is absolutely untrue. It's just never happened against them, right? In favor of the people. And so I don't make any, statements about, how noble these efforts is. I have no clue. And I'm not even going to pretend like I know why this information is being released. I assume it's being released for the sake of releasing the information because people have a right to know. We do have a right to know that Neera Tanden, who is someone who is closely affiliated and connected to the chain of command, is a very mean person in her emails and talks stuff about a lot of other, people that we're supposed to believe you're supposed to be working with. Like, how can we actually believe that you're going to address issues that you snicker about or say you don't want to address in private? Like, this goes back to the notion of the private public conversation as well. I know you guys are trying to call in. We're having an issue with Skype connecting tonight, and that's how the calls come in. So keep trying, and we'll try to get to you. But if you don't, so we're having, like I said, we're having a problem with Skype coming in. But here's the other thing. Like, we have, like I've showed you guys before, your podcast exists for you guys to use. So if you ever want to sound off, You can. I'll get the number put up again later in the show. You guys can sound off whatever's on your mind, whatever's going on. But we decided as an editorial board, like I said, we decided to come together. Ben is our editor-in-chief. Our managing editors are Salam Marcos and David Grossman, also my producer. Editors at large are myself and Michael Salomon, and our senior writers are my mind is going blank. JP Rankin and Michael Redwine. So definitely looking for the relaunch of the new site. But we released this piece today as a group because we really felt it was important to send a message about this issue, because while it is true that, you know, if another government is actually engaging in disruptive activity, then that does need to be handled. But at the same time, we cannot act like somehow that trumps the veracity and the validity of the content itself. Because let's be clear, no matter how much Joyanne Reed wants to, you know, retweet the Daily News bin and cite sources that aren't valid and trustworthy, right? But every time Secretary Clinton, you notice, every time she gets asked a question every time any of them get asked a question from the substance of an email, either they answer it, Secretary Clinton answers them. Always. She goes, oh yeah, I remember. That was specifically, oh, you remember, huh? So that tells me that email, that batch is valid. But also, you know, they automatically try to deflect. They're not saying, I mean, and they try to say there are some, the language has been used that some may be falsified, not all, but whatever they saw, whatever was out there that was false or fabricated was something that somebody else inserted. You know, it's not anything that has been, because if you go through the WikiLeaks database, everything has source code, everything has links, you know, it's all there. And WikiLeaks has 100%. You know, everybody loved WikiLeaks when they was going against the Bush administration, when they were doing other stuff. People were like, well, why aren't they going against Republicans? Well, in this election cycle, this is the way information is coming out. I mean, maybe somebody needs to hack the Republicans to give them some information. I don't know. WikiLeaks themselves doesn't get it. They just put it out there, you know, so maybe you need to talk to some hackers to get them to hack the. I mean, what do we need to know about what's going on with Republicans? They are a crap show falling apart in front of our very eyes. The transparency, unfortunately, is there. I wish we didn't see so much of what's going on with Republicans. But with the Democrats, on the other hand, we have this moral superiority that's being shoved down our throats as if somehow that they are the only thing, to quote Secretary Clinton from New York Magazine, only thing between us and the apocalypse, when in fact they are highly problematic in their own right. And they're not going to get better magically just because they win. You know, all these organizations and these groups and individuals who get behind them, like, yes, we just have to get in line. We just have to get behind them. And we just have to do this because we have to beat Trump. What happens on November 9th when they got their people who were with them from jump, not all the rest of you who opposed them at first? You really think that because you came over from Bernie Sanders and you went to her side, if your organization, you really think that you're going to get adequate play and voice? Really? That's a vindictive crew. We see that from them emails. And if you wasn't rolling with them from jump, we're not going to get a seat at the table, and we're not going to be welcomed with a blessing. I don't want a seat at the table. Right? I don't want you to give me anything. Because when somebody gives you something, there's always some expectation that they owe you. They own you, right? You owe them something because they gave you. I think about my mama all the time. Well, you know, because I did this for you when you were a baby. I was a baby. How are you talking to me about how you made me organic baby food? I didn't ask you to do that. You did it on your own. I digress. But the piece is awesome. It's up on the website now. We've all tweeted it out. Definitely check it out and read it. And check out more. I mean, it was cool going through the process of doing the editorial with everyone. But really, part of even that statement that she made one of our biggest issues too was that statement, right? The fact check, ABC fact check that it's true, but it's inaccurate. It's actually, Salam and I researched it earlier. It's inaccurate. So what it is she said 17 intelligence agencies have confirmed. No, they said that the word was not confirmed. They said they basically said that they strongly believed. Now that they had evidence and some of that funny language Colin Powell used, I mean, seriously, I mean, that's immediately what I think of when we're talking about, do we take action against another country and we have some shaky evidence? I think of, going back to going into Iraq with the weapons of mass destruction. Like, when we believe, we think, we have credible information that suggests. That's not really what I'm willing for us to send people to die for, because you think. I'm not willing for you to kill other people really over any of this either. So what it is the 17 agencies make up what they call the intelligence community. And it was a joint statement. What this really comes from is a joint statement from Department of Homeland Security and the head of one of the intelligence agencies. So instead of, even though it's a committee of 17, it was really a statement from heads of 2 agencies. And what was said was they believe, not that they know, not that they have credible information, that they believe based on whatever they have based on. It was real flowery, basically amounts to a whole load of nothing. And if it comes out that it was Russia, okay, it comes out it was Russia. Russia engaged potentially in cyber activity against the United States. Guess what? The United States is the largest cyber bully on the planet Earth. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Do better. So going back to debate, like going back to Donald Trump for a bit. One of the things that really grabbed me, and it clearly grabbed a lot of people who were watching, was and he said it before like this, the African Americans and the Latinos, and that right, as if somehow we're a foreign group, so unlike him, like I remember when my grandma used to say, when my parents split up, she'd call my mother the mother. It has a way of depersonalizing. And there's actually a piece by a linguist that's out that talks about how when you put that the in front of a group or a particular characteristic or something like that, it's a way of dehumanizing and actually creating something as an other that is evaluated and examined separately from you and your personal values, because we've seen so much of that, though, with people of color, with Black people in particular in this country, with our history of slavery and other stuff. We've seen how we have been made to be other so that we can then be compartmentalized, categorized, and separated out. We see it happening with the left, right? They're other, they're stupid, they're privileged, whatever the insult that's thrown our way, to somehow box us off so that we can be separated out and dealt with separately. Right? It's a means of separating people out. It's a means of otherness and creating a way so that you can then, we need to control their behavior, or we need to do this. Just the whole way that he talks. So I can understand where people think that there are people who genuinely believe that voting against him is actually going to save brown people. I mean, maybe you could try and argue that there might be less people deported. I don't know really how you make those arguments given the facts that we have in front of us as the existing. You can't argue that maybe less people will die at the hands of police, because people are dying at the hands of police right now. We have the president we have now. So there are things that are beyond the control of either one of those two people that will continue to happen unless we, as a movement, as individuals in our communities, actually organize and engage. So I tweeted out, the fact that, watching this, I was like, the way he says the African Americans, it really bothers me. And the more and more, it doesn't matter whether and shout out to Wendy Muse. Wendy had a brilliant tweet the other day. She said that she is a Black woman in America married to a Muslim immigrant. Trump people, get out. Don't be following me. Don't be retweeting me. Don't be liking me. Like, you crazy. That's basically the gist of it. I might have added a little more. And then, she was like, and Hillary people, don't be getting all excited and stuff, because y'all can get it too, basically. And so last night, my thing was, I hate the way he says the African Americans. It just sounds, it's intentional. It's absolutely intentional. The way it's said. It's not that he doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, because he talks about people and then he says a very specific phrase when he's having a very specific conversation. Particularly last night, he was talking about how we don't have education. I'm usually not one of those that gets on the whole, like, oh my God, we're not all poor. I grew up poor. I know about government cheese and food banks and soup kitchens and stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, this whole the way he frames things, this otherness, it appeals to a certain segment. And don't get it twisted, Hillary Clinton has her own language that she uses to appeal to those same groups of people. But what's interesting is the Trump supporters. And someone had an article about how they get so mad about political correctness, and they're happy that he's calling it out. So we had a very lovely woman, an attorney actually, join us on Twitter to share with us her thoughts in response to mine not liking it. I mean, she went through everything under the sun that absolutely had nothing to do with this point, and they can't even give us anything valid to say about they don't even have any valid points to Trump. You know, I've had people tell me, you know, vote for Trump because he's going to save us all. He don't even like black people like that. He liked the one they making him money, like, but that's about it. I know you. I see that you guys are trying to call in. Like I said, I think that we've had a technical issue tonight with the phones with Skype. So I do apologize for that, because I really, really, really did want to get you guys on the phone and hear from you. And it's jumping tonight, which is exciting. And I do apologize. But seriously, please, you can actually, if you guys actually leave a message on the Skype, and I can even put together something with your voicemails. Like, you know, I know technology is not perfect, but that's more reason to support, become a Patreon of the way. Even though I'm hosting for Ben, I'm gonna plug myself for a moment, because seriously, like, it is not easy to be able to do this stuff, you know, without your support. I know many of you are Patreons have been, you know, if you have $1 to shoot my way too, it helps us enable to build out the technology so that we can minimize these types of interruptions and disruptions in our ability to communication and flow together. Because I think it's best when I can communicate with you. But so this lady it was just a good time. Some other folks jumped in. Even our producer David Grossman kind of got in on the fun. And I say it's fun because it's fascinating. It's actually fascinating to see and to look in the minds. And one thing, because there was actually two other Trump supporters kind of got into action, and all three of them were lawyers, or at least their profiles say they were lawyers. And then there was another one, Gucci Girl or something like that. She was just deranged. But the lawyers really were interesting to me, because it made me think about how we talk about the legal profession as being still predominantly white in this country, very unrepresentative of you know, people of color. And in particular, when we're talking about prosecutors across the country are predominantly white men, like overwhelmingly white men. And we talk about, you know, parity in the criminal justice system and the issues with racial disparities across the board. And then you look at the mentality of some of these white lawyers, and no, not all white lawyers, right? But it's just, I just focused on it because I had 3 back-to-back last night, different places. And again, it could be all the same troll accounts, who knows? But just thinking about when you have, you know, even when you look at law schools, the faculty is largely white men of a certain era. And we don't really begin to change the way business is done until we can really begin to influence how people are engaged, how people are educated, nurtured, where that's coming from, right? If you're not taught anything differently, some of us, you know, of course, some people are autodidacts and learn on their own and figure it out as they get along, but the majority of folks do not. And if they're not given something different, they'll just go along with what they've been raised with. And so this lady was definitely, I mean, she just was on. There's no such thing as ISIS. I mean, you just heard Trump on the debate talking about ISIS, but you want to say there's no such thing? Okay. And some of her points, again, someone pointed out to me, like, well, some of her points about Hillary are correct. They are. Some of her points are. But here's the thing. I wasn't talking about Hillary Clinton. I don't even support Hillary Clinton, right? I already said it. I'm not voting for her. I'm voting for Jill Stein. I don't even support her. So why are you talking to me about her? I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about him. And that's the thing people got to get past too. Just because I'm not kissing your candidate's ass doesn't mean you need to talk to me about the other person. I don't like them either. But the fact that we can't even talk about issues with Trump and race, these people get so defensive. That tells me a lot about where we really are in America and where we have been. It's just now in vogue to be openly discriminatory again, right? This never went away. And that's what we got to work on, you know, actually moving the needle, not just suppressing and telling people they can't be that way in public. We got to really actually address these issues. One of the young sisters who started following me recently, she actually said she got tired of Tom Hart and decided to come over to our way. So I'm, you know, shout out. Definitely. I told her I was going to quote her tonight. I definitely appreciate the support always, but like, this is so true because we've known this has been an issue for so long, right? We've known that this has been a problem. And shout out to Kaylee Douglas. She said all of us non-whites knew they were there. White people just now got hit to the League of Racist Uncles. I love it. League of Racist Uncles. Now it's all their relatives' job to do work. No more excuses for Aunt Sharon if you're suddenly terrified of Trump. And that's true. I mean, because I had actually a bunch of people, and respect to folks who shared with me a couple of days, maybe a week or so ago, about how difficult it actually has been for them to have those conversations. I know many of you do try to have those conversations with your friends and family and social networks and stuff. And bravo to you. And we got to find a way to help lift each other up to be able to have those conversations and be able to work with people, because it's not tolerable. But there are too many of us who sit there, and we do have that uncle or that aunt or that grandfather, whoever, and we don't say anything or do anything, or we don't try. And like I said, it's difficult. It's not easy. I'm not going to act like my grandfather never said anything crazy growing up either. But at the same time, when we're talking about, oh my God, Trump is so bad, but when you got those same, and you don't understand where Trump came from, or how this is happening, or where was this at in America. But when you think back to growing up, and people would tell certain jokes or have certain attitudes or grab the purse, or you couldn't really bring your Black friends home. I will never forget when my little brother, my youngest brother is 18, first semester of college. I will never forget when he came, when we were visiting, and little girl at school, again, we lived in West Virginia. But stuff like this happened, elsewhere. It happens elsewhere too. But when we he said he couldn't. He was the only one in the class that didn't get invited to. He was in pre-K, I think, or maybe it was kindergarten. He didn't get invited to a birthday party. And the rule is, when my kids are a little younger, that you couldn't pass out stuff at school. If you weren't inviting everybody, then you couldn't pass out, invitations and stuff in class. And I don't, I guess maybe that came from out of bullying and stuff, and this definitely would fit in that same area. But basically, he asked the little girl after everybody got the invitations why he couldn't go. She was like, "Oh, my daddy don't let ins in our house." And they're like 4 or 5 years old. And they play together at school and everything, and she didn't even think anything of it. But he didn't know necessarily what she said to him, but he just knew it was something about him being different. Of course, my godmom, she raised hell and let everybody have it. But, that type of tolerance, like one of the things I always think about with this conversation is A Different World. There's an episode of A Different World, I think it might be season 4 or 5, maybe like later on in the show, might be season 4. Season 4 or 5. Anyway, Different World. If you've never seen A Different World before, great show. Yeah, I know Bill Cosby had issues, but Debbie Allen, did a lot of the producing and stuff like that. Really took over. Great show. Hillman is based on Howard, her alma mater, Debbie Allen's alma mater. Anyway, they were definitely hit on several really serious issues. And there's this one episode, Dean Cain's actually in it, where Hillman, which is a fictitious HBCU, plays a all-white school, what we call a PWI, predominantly white institution. And there is an incident where the main characters, Dwayne Wayne and Ron Johnson, get into a fight with 3 white students from the other school, and then they all get arrested and stuff like that. And so they're all sitting in the jail cell, and the cop is trying to get the story about what's going on. So, it's one of these, you know how shows were in the 90s. Everybody, when you go back and people would tell and they always tell it as if the other person's so awful compared to them and they were so great. So they're going through and they're trying to figure out what happened. And there's the one guy who was kind of a reluctant participant, and he was there with his boys, but he wasn't really down for what they were doing. And basically what happened is, I guess Ron scammed them out of some money maybe or something like that. I may be remembering this not exactly right, but they got upset because I think maybe they were betting on the football game. And I think maybe they knew that someone was suspended or something from the other team and they didn't know it. And so he used that to his advantage. So they wrote NI. It was it was either NI or NIG on the hood of his car. And so then they start fighting or whatever. So anyway, so when the cop is talking to them and stuff like that, and so they were telling different things. And so finally the one white guy who's kind of reluctant participant in all this, he's just stop it. And he tells a story about how, he never had a problem with black, he never knew that he was different from black kids. They played together, they even came over his house. They went to school together. But it wasn't until he went on a fishing trip with his father and his uncle, or father and grandfather, something like that. And his dad tells a joke. It's like, what do you call a black doctor? And the dude was just talking about how that shook him to his core. And I think about that because how many of us who are, how many of you are good liberals out there who have heard such jokes from your counterparts and stuff? I mean, and it's on all of us to address issues of anti-racism, because even though there are so many issues that persist in this country, when we look at the root and the seeds of oppression and degradation, it's heavily grounded in, three major isms: racism, sexism, and classism. When we look at the creation of this country, enshrining power in white male landowners, at the same simultaneously declaring blackness as inhuman, as to be sold as property only, that sets forth our entire standard for how property, wealth creation is built in the society. And proximity to whiteness gives you greater access, or so people think. So we need to have these conversations. We need people who are willing to leverage, their understanding and their position to move those things over. So I really appreciated her tweet and stuff, because I was like, little sis is dead on. And this kind of brings me, kind of into closing. And again, I do apologize for the issue with Skype tonight. Usually Skype is up and running and only like 2 of you call in, and like 6 or 7 of you tried. But definitely, like I said, call, leave a message, because the voicemail will work. And I can string that together, and we can kind of edit it that way. But we want y'all to be involved. If you guys haven't already, joined the Facebook group, Progressive Army Discussion Group. That is a place where we're trying to build and cultivate, because we're all about the conversation. Yes, we want to grow and be big and take TYT on, but at the same time, we want to be able to help drive conversations and help engage you on the issues that matter in your world. So tonight, before I came home to come do this and fill in for Ben, I had the opportunity, the Alonzo Krim Center here in Georgia, at Georgia State University. They had some pre-events. They have a conference going on this weekend. They're going to be talking about issues involving school to prison pipeline. There is the OSD school district issue going on here in Atlanta. With looking at state control and takeover of public schools, kind of looking at the proposed model here in Georgia is based off of a failed plan from New Orleans. But I went to a presentation. Dr. Akinyele Umoja is the head of the African American Studies Department at Georgia State, and he wrote a book, We Will Shoot Back. Some of you may have seen my tweets about it earlier this evening. My last, closing out, power to the people. But We Will Shoot Back. I just got my copy. I've started reading my mom's copy, but then I wanted to make notes in the margin. I don't know if some of you do that when you read and highlight and stuff. Dr. Umoja actually will be joining me on the way Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We're going to be chopping it up and talking about how to leverage our power, how to grow power for, greater political access, as well as we'll talk about the book some and really just talk about community organizing and building out opportunities for people to engage and activate. But just going back from the quote I used Tuesday night, there's a difference between growing support, growing our base and growing support, and growing power, growing access, right? And one of the things that was so wonderful from the talk that was said was that when you look at, like I said, this is the 50th anniversary of the Black Power movement, of the Black Panther Party. When you look at these movements, when you look at these opportunities to engage and build, people were carving out for themselves. They weren't waiting for anyone to give them access. They weren't, having these discussions. So one of the things with We Will Shoot Back, it talks about armed resistance in Mississippi. And a lot of people think of, this time during the Civil Rights Movement, it was just strictly nonviolence. You had the Deacons for Self-Defense. You had groups that actually did defend people, did exercise self-defense. Everybody always thinks that it's just Malcolm with that iconic picture with the gun by the window, but there was an entire movement in the South. There were Black gun clubs. You had Black members of the NRA in the South. During this time period. They weren't necessarily supported or recognized by the NRA, But people had black gun clubs because people had to defend against the Klan and against other intrusions into their community and defend their properties, their family, and their liberty. I mean, this happened. So this book is excellent. You can definitely, cop it online. And like I said, Dr. Emoji will be with me on Tuesday night to discuss this. But what I thought was so great about the conversation was just talking about the transition from maybe that height of when we talk about post 65, when you're going towards, Black Power, Stokely Carmichael in 66 and the genesis of the Black Power movement and the use of the phrase Black Power, and how that actually, when you look at that period coming out of, when you look at Mississippi, right? Because we're talking about Mississippi, in particular, Jackson, Mississippi. I believe he said Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi. That's a killer word. Remember trying to spell that as a kid? Mississippi. Anyway, Jackson, Mississippi is about 85% Black, I think, right? And they were just talking about how, this movement activity and leveraging it, talking about gaining political power in this instance, right? Gaining social power, building social capital, and actually looking at how to build a foundation and run candidates of the community to represent the community that are accountable to the community. And it's great that we get support together to come defeat, an amendment or come vote for some person. But how do we grow our power, grow our base to be able to then leverage and put people in positions? And this is what we started doing for those of us who came in this movement and supported Bernie Sanders, and for those people who are now going green, right? We are leveraging our collective power and strategy and engaging to put people in positions that we're infiltrating the system, right? We're occupying the system in a sense. And so this conversation tonight, and this is why having historical reflections is really good, because there are great examples that come from histories and stories to be shared and told that can help inform decisions that we're making going forward. And one thing that I appreciated, my stepfather spoke as well. May have shared this before. Stepfather's a former Black Panther, member of the Black Liberation Army. And other organizations. He's a founding board member of the organization Critical Resistance. And one of these days, he's actually sitting on a panel tomorrow night talking about prison industrial complex and prison liberation. And he did a piece 15 years ago, I think, about Attica. And so he's going to be talking about that as well. And some of the stuff around the protests that have been happening. But so one day I'll be able to grab him and actually get him to sit down and talk to me too. But they were talking about, these organizations and these conversations that are happening and how a lot of this movement work is starting to come full circle. People have been doing this for a long time. And now there are more of us who are cognizant and aware of what people are doing, how they're doing it. And it's great to have these stories. So I talk about Jackson, Mississippi. We talk about it as a Jackson model. I've talked before about Baba Chokwe Lumumba, may he rest in peace, he passed away, who was mayor of Jackson. He was city councilman, and they built out a people's assembly and used that to help leverage the power of their community to first elect him to city council. And then they used that power that they have been moving, they've been building that movement to elect him as mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. And for him to be a revolutionary, candidate coming in the vein of a Fannie Lou Hamer style Democrat, right? That was huge. And now in this election cycle, his son is actually running for mayor of Jackson now. So shout out to Chokwe. And would definitely am trying to reach out to him, because I really think that the model that they're building for community engagement and organizing is a great example for us about growing that power. We're talking about we need to grow when we're looking at local and state elections. And then hopefully we can create a movement where we're doing that. And of course, it takes the national effort too. But at some point, whether it's in 2020 or in 2024, we're able to really start affecting the power on a national level, right? We're growing power. And I think that this is just such a great piece. When I talk about power to the people, talk about free to land, we talk about the Black radical tradition, and I'm really excited to start bringing in some people who have lived it, who've researched it, who've experienced it, who can talk more about it in more detail. But I think that it can inform a lot of the work that we're saying needs to be done, lessons learned and all that jazz. The last thing, what I appreciate the most is that he said they don't tell people what to do, or back in my day, we did this way and you're doing wrong. because sometimes they said they may have been things you guys have learned, meaning us, our generation of organizers and activists, that they didn't know then. And we have the access to technology. We have so much more now, right? So I definitely think it's great bringing together the old and the new and mixing it all up. I'm really excited for this. Thank you so much again for joining me tonight on the Benjamin Dixon Show. This has been a pseudo production of The Way with Noah. Filling in for Ben. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties with the Skype. I'm not really sure what happened with our connection. Promise the bill is paid. But if you ever want to help out with this stuff, we can't without you, right? So patreon.com/The Way with Noah would definitely appreciate, like I said, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5. It goes a long way. It really does. It all adds up. It helps, with us in the technology. And maybe someday I'll actually be able to pay the people who take the time to produce and research and edit for us. Shout out to Owen, who edits all the videos on the channel for all of us, and does an excellent job in addition. Trying to get a new laptop in the works. So we have a lot going on. So I really appreciate you guys. Really, thank you so much for being here on a Thursday night, because I know there are other people to listen to. But like I'm saying, I'm not going to steer you wrong. I'm not going to sell you no hustle. I'm not going to tell you no jive. I'm not going to preach no bull. I'm here to kick it to you straight. Something that I don't think I've ever shared. Right? It's pretty cool. Actually, I was reading something recently. I'm not very religious, and I've never really actually, I think, expressed what the way with Noah even means. So this is how I'm gonna close out tonight. I'm gonna tell you guys about the way with Noah. So I was actually reading something recently, and I did not realize this. Before it was labeled Christianity, followers of the teachings of Jesus Christ, it was called the way. That's not why I picked this at all, but it's interesting the way old world cultures and history are interrelated. My name Anoa actually comes from Ghana. My parents picked it from a book called 2000 Seasons, and in that book, the Anoas, it's a name, loosely means the one who keeps the tradition of her ancestors. But Anoa was also a title. Anoa served a function in the community, right? They were keepers of the way, of the way of the ancestors, the way that the people have been, and also helped guide to make sure people knew where they were going. And I want to be that guide for you, right? I want to work with you. I want to build forward, but we also got to keep perspective. We got to keep things in focus. And together we to use the Bernie slogan, together we will win. We will rise. We will build power. We will build power, and we will effectuate change. And we're going to continue to build out our platforms, and we're going to continue to build and grow our community. And I hope that you stay with us and grow with us and have a great weekend. So definitely look for updates and stuff from us, and take care. This has been the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your co-host, stand in for Ben, Anoa Changa, and good night. Peace.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.